right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. You can talk back. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you all taking time out of your day to join us for what I believe will be a fabulous luncheon celebrating Juneteenth. My name is Joy McAtee, and I'm the Executive Director of Equity for Louisville Metro Government, and I'm really honored to be able to serve in this capacity for the city that I love so much. Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commemorating the final communication of the abolition of slavery in the United States. Of course, following the issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1 of 1863, not all enslaved people immediately found freedom. The Emancipation Proclamation freed folks living in states in rebellion against the U.S., but it did not apply to the border states. So in actuality, those states got 2 extra years of free and exploited labor, and if we're honest about it, that is because it was responsible for building the wealth of many white slave owners and so many others. So I truly believe that by increasing equity, it's the practical way and the only way towards remedying long-standing economic and social disparities that prevent full participation in the American democratic process, and by expanding access to opportunities for Black, minority, marginalized communities through education, advocacy, and resources via legislation, policy change, and strategic partnerships is how we will address root cause issues to disrupt barriers and achieve equitable outcomes that enable all Louisvillians to thrive. So we have a lot of work to do. But a little bit about the Juneteenth Commission. It is a 16-member body that is comprised of representatives from areas of business, the arts, education, faith institutions, nonprofit, and government. And our mission is to recognize and honor Black heritage and achievements, and to enhance the economic and cultural developments of our Black community through a celebration of the Juneteenth holiday. So please give a warm round of applause to our commissioners, and thank you for all the work that you do. The Commission is also grateful to partner with Lean Into Louisville, which is an initiative out of the Office of Equity that is focused on addressing and confronting the history and legacy of all forms of racism and discrimination. And in a time where we're seeing orchestrated attempts to silence and erase Black history by people who want to maintain a poorer and unhealthier Black social class, we must press forward anyway, stronger and more united, in order to tell the truth that Black history is American history. And I know many of us have seen the movie The Color Purple, and there's a line that says, "Folks don't like nobody to be too proud and too free." But then there's another famous line that Silly says where, "Until you do right by me," and you all can fill in the rest. And so until the city does better by us and America does better by us. And that's what we're here to make sure that we continue to raise the banner about in this celebration, and partnering with everyone that wants the city to be a much better place. And so I really believe in my heart of hearts that we can do that we can seize on this window of opportunity that we have if we commit to being bold and fearless in our efforts, and I think future generations will thank us for it, which is why I'm so excited that you all will be able to hear from our amazing keynote speaker. He is a Louisville-born man named Jermaine Fowler, and we're very excited to what he's going to bring to you all this afternoon. I really think he'll be able to tell you about how our story is America's glory, and he'll do that in his own special way that will cause you to think and then spark you into action. And so right now we're going to go ahead and welcome our mayor, Craig Greenberg, to the stage. He'll share a few words of greetings, and then just exactly after that, we'll welcome the Reverend Dr. Joshua A. Harris, who is the pastor of First Gethsemane Baptist Church, to give us our invocation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joy, for your leadership of our Office of Equity, and for all the work that you and your colleagues are doing every day here throughout the entire city of Louisville. And thanks to Wanda Mitchell-Smith and all of the Juneteenth commissioners for everything that you all have done in organizing not just this great event, but all of the amazing celebrations throughout this week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us at this important luncheon. I'm excited to hear from Jermaine Fowler with his important remarks coming up, but also to be here in honor of our city's recognition of Juneteenth. As Joy said, this year's theme is Our Story, America's Glory. And this theme is really a call to action for all of us to learn and reflect on this pivotal milestone in our nation's history. The theme was chosen by the Jubilee Commission, and they are continuing to do an outstanding job, as I just mentioned, under the leadership of Wanda and with Joy and her team's help. So let's give them all another round of applause for everything that they're doing. Juneteenth is a holiday for all of us to reflect on, to learn from, and to celebrate, because it's a celebration of freedom and justice, two things that we still struggle to provide for everyone in our city today and everyone in our country. And although Juneteenth has a very painful history, it's so important to celebrate the strength and resilience it represents, as well as the progress we have made, as we work urgently towards more progress and more prosperity for all. We need to continue to keep that in mind as we work towards more progress. So I'm so excited that we have Jermaine with us here today, because he is doing more than examining history. He's making his own history. And it's going to be great to hear from him in his book as our very own Louisvillian with a New York Times best-selling book that is really telling the world, teaching the world more about what we need to know and understand. And he's gaining national attention for providing what we need, in-depth research that will help to challenge commonly held perspectives and improve understanding and conversation about the history that we share as Americans. Because Black history is American history. And it's a subject every American should know, yes. It's a subject that every American should know more about, that every child should learn, and that every school should teach. So we're thrilled to have Jermaine with us today. I'm excited to hear your remarks, and we wish you continued success from Louisville to throughout the world. And I encourage everyone not just to join with us today, but to continue. There are a few more Juneteenth celebration events throughout the rest of the week during this celebration week. And so if you can find out more information at the website, juneteenthlu.com. That's juneteenthlu.com. So again, thanks to everyone on the commission. Thanks to everyone at Metro Government for working on this. I hope everyone enjoys this luncheon, learns a lot, and that we continue to work together to make more progress. Thank you all very much.
Let us pray. O Lord, our God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. God, we say thank you. We thank you, O God, that in the midst of the strains and struggles and storms of this life, that God, you continue to provide us unspeakable joy, that you continue to call us towards the worthy cause of justice, and that you continue to provide strength for us in every way upon the journey. God, we thank you for the purpose in which we have gathered to this place and for those that have summoned us here. We ask, oh God, as we reflect and rejoice upon our history, that we also recommit ourselves to making history. Give us the strength and the tenacity necessary to comfort the disturbed and to disturb the comfortable as we carry out what you require of us, to do the work of justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before you. We ask, oh God, that you continue to provide strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Bless the food and the fellowship, and certainly bless our cause. In the name of Jesus Christ and in the name of justice, we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much for that, Pastor. I would like to invite Mr. Joshua Purcell, a member of Simmons College, to sing Lift Every Voice. Will we please stand as that song is delivered?
Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chasing rod, built in the days with hope. Unborn had died, yet with the steady beat, come now our weary feet. Come to the place for which our Father sighed. We have come over a way with their tears have been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is past. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might brought us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we must be. Lest our hearts, drunk with the ways of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you so much for that, Brother Joshua. Also would like to give recognition to the council members that we have joining us today. Councilwoman Paula McCraney, representing District 7. Thank you so much. Councilwoman Donna Purvis, representing District 5. And then also Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur, representing District 4, who I'd also like to go ahead and welcome to the stage for a spoken word. Thank you.
2 centuries of Black Louisville. Our history in this city is brave, brute, and beautiful. Unfortunately, we know that our state is a mess. So you might never hear this history in JCPS. And to be honest, some of us don't even know our own. I never knew who Milburn T. Maupin was on my elementary school until I was grown. So as we take some time out of this week to celebrate emancipation, Let's remember locals who helped advance the nation. Once upon a time in 1964, he said, "Y'all can't call me Cassius Clay Jr. no more." A few years later, he refused to go to war, a humanitarian, going overseas for a different type of tour. Some of y'all learn float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I learned I am America. I'm the part you won't recognize, but get used to me. He taught us to be the change that we wanted to see. So when we rename this city, we need to name it the City of Muhammad Ali. That's our story, America's glory. That's our story, America's glory. Say it with me. Our story, America's glory. That's our story, America's glory. And then once upon a time in 1961, Beverly Neal Watkins decided she was done. She organized with black students at Central and Mail to protest downtown, catching all sorts of hell. Black teens taking over your radios and television screens. Black teens showing America what love in action means. Black teens made over 200 businesses in Louisville integrate. Willing to die for love, but unwilling to live for hate. That's our story, America's glory. 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 Then, once upon a time in 1935, a brother named Charles Anderson Jr. showed our people how to thrive. The first black state legislator since Reconstruction, pushing P, that stands for policy, to advance our destruction. He got funding for black students, black teachers, black facilities, proving we need opportunity to show our abilities. He repealed the public hanging law and fought for our rights and made sure that other politicians saw our plight. That's our story, America's glory. That's our story, America's, say it like you mean it, that's our story, America's glory. That's our story, America's glory. And then once upon a time in 1963, attorney Alberta Jones went to march on D.C. She created the Independent Voters Association to show our people how to get involved in our own liberation. That movement got rid of some aldermen. It got rid of the mayor. It made government hire us. We just wanted it fair. The first Kentucky female prosecutor killed, and we still don't know who to blame. We need justice. So we're going to always say her name. That's our story, America's glory. 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 And then once upon a time in 2019, Ja'Cory Arthur shook up the political scene. A decade before he ran the streets breaking laws, and then he became the youngest legislator in city history making laws. He told y'all we don't need symbolism through proclamations. We need to organize for resources and legislation. He reminded you of slavery. He reminded you of segregation and reminded you that we could never heal without reparations. That's our story, America's glory. 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 We can't undo, unlearn, unsee, or unhear this. Our history is endless. Our ancestors were fearless. We fought in every war, revolution, civil plus. We always loved America, even when she didn't love us. I'm not ashamed of the American flag that black people quilted. I'm not ashamed of our country because black people built it. Our success, our struggle, our strength, our story will always be one and the same with the United States of America's glory. Thank you.
Give that brother a real round of applause. That was amazing how he brought the story to light. And it is important, it is very important that we remember that we have so many unsung heroes here in the city of Louisville that contributed significantly to the civil rights movement, that enabled so many of the freedoms and things that we are allowed to enjoy today. And I'm looking over, I see Sherry Bryant Hamilton, former councilwoman. Thank you so much for what you've done. And there's so many other leaders here as well. Akram Burton, thank you so much for what you're doing with the Kentucky African American Heritage Center. So food is now being served, and we will have some soft music play, and then I will rejoin you shortly to introduce our keynote speaker. Recognized by Essence Magazine as one of the 31 books you must read in 2023, the New York best-selling author Jermaine Fowler delivers his hard-hitting truth. Born in Louisville, Kentucky, Jermaine is a storyteller and self-proclaimed intellectual adventurer who spent his youth seeking knowledge on the shelves of his local free public library. Between research and lecturing, he is the host of the top-rated history podcast, The Humanity Archive, which has been praised as a must-listen by Vanity Fair. Challenging dominant perspectives, Fowler goes outside the textbooks to find stories that are recognizably human, connecting current issues with the heroic struggles of those who've come before us. He brings hidden history to light and makes it powerfully relevant. Please join me in giving a round of applause to Jermaine Fowler.
It is a joy to be here at the Palm Room. And I want you to sit here and I want you to envision the tapestry of time threading all the way back to 1954, right here in the heart of the Russell neighborhood. This place, the Palm Room, has withstood everything from the onslaught of Jim Crow to the battle scars of urban renewal. I want you to close your eyes and listen carefully, and you can almost hear the rhythmic notes of jazz, the soulful sound that dances and echoes off the very walls of this place. And so it is in this spirit of recollection, in this spirit of reverence that we gather here today. Our mission today, our sacred charge, is to echo the unvoiced, the unnoticed, and until recently undervalued story of Juneteenth, a story that seeks recognition as much as it deserves celebration. So I want to thank you all for coming out and spending your lunch here with us today. And I want to give a personal thanks to Joy McAtee and to Wanda Smith. Everybody please give them a round of applause real quick, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Juneteenth, Juneteenth, Juneteenth. I want to begin with a story so that you understand why, out of all the Emancipation Days celebrated by Black people, why Juneteenth was what they chose, because there were many, but Juneteenth resonated the most. So I want you to imagine for a moment the year is 1870. Only 5 years after the ratification of the Emancipation Proclamation. Picture Austin, Texas, a place where the shimmering heat danced over the dusty trails on a hot summer day, and the air itself seemed to echo with the hard-fought progress of a people. A particular group in that southern city, a community of Black people, sought to honor a day of profound importance to them, the 19th of June. So as if gathered at the crossroads of history, they convened a grand assembly, a convocation of souls, each individual ready to stand up and passionately argue their point of view, to dispute the cause. They were debating whether to celebrate Juneteenth or the 4th of July. And my mind shifts to that towering figure of Frederick Douglass and his piercing words in that renowned speech, "What to the slave is the 4th of July." Now, Frederick Douglass wasn't at this meeting, but his immortal lines still ring true in my mind when he said, "What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of freedom, natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not common to all. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. The 4th of July is yours, not mine. Douglas declared, the 4th of July is yours, not mine. And herein lies the crux of the matter. The 4th of July stood as a beacon of liberty, but for whom? Equality, but for whom? The 4th of July rang with the resonance of liberty and independence, but for white people. But for black people, it was a day that mirrored the distance between the promise and the practice of freedom. Freedom and liberty, such sweet words, aren't they? Embodied in the 4th of July, but not freedom for everybody. The founding fathers did not bequeath justice and liberty and equality for everybody. So black people experience the same day under the same sunlight with a profoundly different reality. Brought in as a cheap labor force that facilitated the economic takeoff of the country. And so when we go back to that meeting at the courthouse in Austin, Texas, the community was there, they were debating what day to celebrate. We find that the 4th of July failed to find favor. It was not merely a day of independence for them, but a reflection of the inequality inherent in that experience of independence. And so as history bears witness, Juneteenth emerged victorious that day by virtue of its powerful resonance. And I found an archival paper that recounts the event. And it says, quote, "A mass meeting of colored people was called at the courthouse, and by and large, the majority stuck to the 19th of June. They said the 4th of July was a very good Liberty Day for the white man, but it never brought their freedom. They knew that freedom come on the 19th of June under the order of General Granger, which date is indelibly fixed in their mind as the 19th of June, and thus, my friends, Juneteenth was born." And so today we're going to dive into the past, not merely to observe history, but to engage in it, to understand it, and to explore the profound resonance that Juneteenth holds as it now stands as a national holiday. Indeed, the fact that enslaved individuals in Galveston, Texas, were not informed of their freedom until 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed is a poignant illustration of the systemic oppression and dehumanization faced by black people in this country. It reminds us of the indelible truth that freedom is often delayed, distorted, and denied for black people, and that is a truth that we're still grappling with today. So what does Juneteenth tell us? Does it tell us about the fragility of justice, the evasiveness of freedom, the persistence of oppression? Yes, it does. Does it tell us about the enduring spirit of humanity, the boundless joy of freedom, the invincibility of hope? Yes, it does. So we must ponder with empathy and sincerity the true significance of Juneteenth. Is it a celebration? Yes. Is it a painful reminder? Yes. Is it a call to action? Yes, it most certainly is. But it also reminds us of the hope and the power of the human spirit. So despite the unimaginable pain and suffering they had to endure, the enslaved individuals who finally received word of their freedom on June 19th, 1865, they rejoiced and they celebrated. They embraced their freedom with open arms, with open hearts, demonstrating resilience and a capacity for joy that is nothing short of awe-inspiring. This spirit is something we must continue to carry forward as we continue to fight for justice and equality. Juneteenth, Juneteenth, Juneteenth. We find ourselves today standing on a battleground where history itself is under siege. Black stories, black history, black voices are being silenced, swept under the rug, shoved into the cramped corners of obscurity. I stand before you to challenge this tradition of unspeaking, the tradition of bearing our truths beneath a mountain of comforting lies. We have those on the right wing, fueled by fear, fueled by ignorance, striving to silence the truth. They are trying to turn our schools into deserts where fruits of knowledge should bloom. They are targeting our books. They are targeting our stories and our accounts of the fight against white supremacy in the United States. They are striking at the heart of our struggle, our resistance, our triumph. And I'm reminded of the words of the towering figure W.E.B. Du Bois when he said, "One is astonished in the study of history that evil must be forgotten, it must be distorted, it must be skimmed over." The difficulty, of course, with this philosophy is that history loses its value as an incentive and an example. It paints perfect men and noble nations, but it does not tell the truth. So this grand nation, a democratic republic built on the twin ideas of freedom and equality, has a habit of selective amnesia, a strange affliction of perceiving its past through rose-colored lenses, but there is no rose without thorns. And so let's be clear, this right-wing effort is not to preserve national pride or unity or to stop divisiveness, as they might try to have people believe, but it is a campaign of whitewashing, a dreadful dismissal of the truths of our past. But how dare they attempt to smother the flames of memory that have signed the pages of our history and yet illuminated the pathways to our progress. To erase the struggle is to invalidate the triumph, to muffle the voices that rose crack and hoarse from the abyss of suffering is to silence the songs of resilience that define our existence. Black history is not an inconvenient truth to be shoved away in the shadows. It's a glaring testament to the indomitable spirit of a people who have turned despair into hope, shackles into liberation. At the same time, let us not be fooled by these seemingly softer narratives of the left. While they might outwardly embrace the spotlight on Black history, there lurks beneath that veneer of empathy a tendency toward reductionism and tokenism. Our experiences and our lives are not simple tales to be trimmed down to fit the narrow confines of political correctness or virtue signaling. Our history is not a token to be trotted out every February, then conveniently forgotten as the calendar page turns. Yes, they proclaim loudly their alliance, but often they engage in a softer form of silencing, a quieter erasure. They propose, for instance, a Black History Month curriculum. Black history is an elective, but remain silent about the hard edges of racial struggle during the rest of the year. People speak of equality and justice, but shy away from the thorny conversations about structural racism that lurks beneath the foundations of our society. We need to speak about the past with candor and with courage. The way forward does not lie in forgetting or in simplifying, but in remembering in broad strokes and fine details the grit and gristle of our history. So then we must demand that the right wing halt its campaign of historical censorship, and we must demand that the left wing replaces platitudes and palliatives with action and advocacy. The whole of our history must be seen, it must be felt, and it must be reckoned with. Black history is American history. It is human history. To silence it in any way is to stifle the soul of our collective consciousness. We will not allow our voices to be silenced. We will not allow our stories to be erased, oversimplified. We will continue to speak, sing, shout until the echoes of the past reverberate into the halls of the future. Juneteenth, Juneteenth, Juneteenth. We cannot talk about the history of Juneteenth without talking about American chattel slavery. We cannot talk about what people were celebrating without talking about why they were celebrating. Now, I know this history might be unsettling to some of you. It might be unnerving. But as the great poet Maya Angelou said, history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. So let's venture courageously into the past, bearing the burden of its pain, while simultaneously celebrating the resilience of those who dared to resist, dared to dream, Despite the gnashing of teeth and the fire of their daily hell, they dared to stand up in the spirit of resistance. Amidst the horrors of the transatlantic journey, resistance was born. Shackled in the darkness of the ship's belly, human beings dared to rise, they dared to fight. There were revolts on those ships, desperate, determined attempts at freedom that many saw as the way out. So many succumbed to the ocean's depths, yet in their demise they found a liberation denied to them on land. They chose death over bondage, freedom over a life of servitude. That was resistance, that was defiance. On the plantation fields and the tobacco farms and the shipyards and the slave pens right here in downtown Louisville, under the cruel lash of the overseer, amidst the separations from families, resistance took root. It was in the spiritual song in the unrelenting sun. It was in the secret meetings held in the woods. It was under the sabotage of machinery, everything they did. It was in the hearts of men and women who, enslaved, were never truly slaves, for their spirits remained free, their hope of liberation undying. In the struggle against the monstrous institution of slavery, that spanned centuries, the abolitionist movement emerged. In the earliest days of the 13 colonies, you had people like Benjamin Banneker and Prince Hall and Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, David Walker calling to the halls of power to end slavery and begin true equality. The work of abolition was not the mere stroke of Abraham Lincoln's pen. Abolition of slavery was born of a sustained, tireless resistance that demanded freedom with every breath, every beat of the heart. It was a struggle on many fronts, from the quiet acts of rebellion on the plantation to the vocal opposition of figures like Henry Highland Garnett and Sojourner Truth. It was a struggle that echoed through years, reverberating with the persistent clamor for justice. And so Juneteenth then is not just a mere celebration, but a day of solemn remembrance of this. It is a day to honor that spirit of resistance, the struggle against an institution that sought to rip people of their very humanity. It is a day that reminds us of the horrors of the past, but also the power of resilience, the strength of the human spirit, and the indomitable will to be free. It is a day to remember that the chains were not broken by the pen alone, but the protracted struggle of those who refused to accept their bondage. The pen signed the Declaration, but it's always the people made it a reality. And so we remember, and so we acknowledge, and so we celebrate. We shatter the silence. We bear witness to the pain. We honor the spirit of resistance. For in remembering the past, we secure the future. In acknowledging the pain, we find the strength to heal. And in celebrating the resistance, we affirm our unyielding commitment to freedom. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Juneteenth, Juneteenth, Juneteenth. We can't talk about Juneteenth without talking about how Black people have threaded the very fabric of this nation. And so I bring back the words of Frederick Douglass one more time, because he was there, he saw it, he saw Black people building America, and he said, as we, Black people, were plowing, planting, reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metals of brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, reading, writing, ciphering, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, poets, authors, editors, teachers, that we are engaged in all of these enterprises, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, living, moving, acting, planning, living in families, all of this while still fighting the institution of slavery. Those words echo in time with the power of Black contributions to America, contribution of people's very lives. They reverberate with the reality that we black people were the sturdy bones and the very sinew of this nation, the blood in the nation's body. So indeed, the paradox then of our history is this reminder that even as the forces of oppression sought to strangle our liberties, we breathe life into the spirit of this nation. So they can attempt to erase us from the history books, but the stories cry out and remind us that any moment you look back in American history, you'll see black stories there, black people there. Fought in every war. But not only that, between 1870 and 1940, black Americans filed some 50,000 patents, second to only English and German immigrants. We built, we innovated, we forged paths into the future. We sowed the seeds of progress in the fields of adversity, demonstrating time and time again that we weren't just survivors, but we were creators and builders and pioneers. But we know the struggle was not just confined to the specter of the past, because we know that Jim Crow still casts its long shadow, still trying to dispel a lot of those myths. People told they're inferior, less than others, met with hatred, met with violence, met with systemic oppression. Yet, despite these harsh realities, we continue to contribute, to innovate, to fight for a true democracy. From the continued fight for civil rights to our ongoing fight against institutionalized racism and housing and healthcare and education and beyond, on the front lines as the warriors in the fight for justice, for equity, and a truly democratic America. And so as we tread forward, we must remember, we must honor, we must recognize the strength of those ancestors, the resolve of those elders, and the tenacity of those youth. We must acknowledge the spirit that was, the spirit that is, and the spirit that will be in our continued fight for a more just and equitable America. We are the past, the present, and the future of this nation. And our history is not merely a map of the past, but a compass guiding us toward a future of liberation, equality, and justice. Juneteenth, Juneteenth, Juneteenth. As we gather today and honor Juneteenth, a day of jubilation, a day of reflection, a testament to our resistance, our fortitude, our perseverance, let us recall that day when Major General Gordon Granger landed on the sandy shores of Galveston, Texas in 1865. His proclamation, a declaration 2 years too late, shattered the cruel, inhumane chains of enslavement. Texas planters, engorged with greed for one final harvest, stifled the emancipation promise. But freedom was insurmountable, and when it exploded into reality, it swept across the land like an unstoppable wave. And yet today we witness the commercialization of Juneteenth. Corporations, institutions, establishments scrambling to join the parade of freedom, often misappropriating its essence, its significance, its very soul. I saw the other day an online invitation for a Juneteenth luncheon, and it had all white people on the panel. It was just like this one. In South Carolina, they had a banner for a Juneteenth celebration stripped of black faces. So I just want to remind you that black people are the essence, the soul, the beating heart of Juneteenth. Protagonists in the historic narrative. Historically, Juneteenth celebrations were intimate affairs, secured from the oppressive white gaze that sought to quell the joy, who sought to quell the pride and downplay the strength of these celebrations. These occasions were our testament to the end of enslavement and honoring of black Civil War veterans. We feasted on foods colored with symbolism like watermelon and red velvet cake and red soda pop, their red hue reflecting the spilled blood and undying fire of those ancestors' resilience. Filling the air with that melody that we heard here today, lift every voice and sing. And we let the words of the Emancipation Proclamation resonate in our souls. People knew the power of celebration, but today people are losing the power of celebration. People want to be amused, people want to be entertained, but celebration is an active state, an act of expressing reverence or appreciation. To be entertained is a passive state. It is to receive pleasure afforded by an amusing act or spectacle. Celebration is a confrontation, giving attention to the transcendent meaning of our actions. So we must commemorate Juneteenth by confronting then the bitter realities that still persist. Louisville, Kentucky. The city's social and economic landscape is marred by the scars of segregation and systemic discrimination. The ghosts of Breonna Taylor and David McAtee linger, stark reminders of the police violence and corruption that has plagued our community. People breathe in the long history of racism in the air and in the water and in the soil in West Louisville. Some of the most contaminated water in the city, ranked as the most toxic in the country. It's a living testament to the racism, a palpable poison tainting the very essence of life. Gross income disparity. Top 20% in Louisville earning 15.7 times the bottom 20%, disproportionately affecting black people. So the promise of Juneteenth, the promise of freedom then, remains unfulfilled. So then what does Juneteenth mean for us today? It's about remembering our past and leveraging it to shape our future. It's about remembering our past and honoring and finding joy in the music and the family and the celebration and the fireworks. Please do all of that. But it's also about confronting and challenging the continued injustices in our city. Juneteenth is not merely a date on a calendar, but a living, breathing testament to our shared history and shared responsibility. So we must rise and honor the sacrifices of those ancestors, not just in words, but in actions. We must confront the brutal realities that still persist in our community. Commit ourselves to change, to justice, to equality. We must challenge the system, question the status quo, and demand that the promise of Juneteenth becomes a tangible reality for everybody. Black people are the heart and soul of Juneteenth, but the responsibility of remembrance, of understanding and making things right does not lie solely with us. It is incumbent on everyone in Louisville, irrespective of race, to participate in this act of recognition, this celebration of emancipation. And yet, as we invite others to partake in this day, we must remember that black people are the center of the narrative. So let us rise as a community unified in recognition of the past, determined in our desire to rectify the present, hopeful for a more just and equitable future. A future where every day is Juneteenth, a future where freedom, equality, and justice ring. And so let us stand together on the dawn of a new era, where the promise of Juneteenth is not just a memory of the past, but a beacon of the future. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jermaine, for that powerful word and invoking much truth and the fact that there are so many things, even here locally, that we are dealing with, and that we shouldn't restrict our observation of freedom to just one day, that this is something that we need to pursue every day. I know we're living in times that many folks we thought we would never see. If you look at things happening across the nation, it was probably remnant of some middle school history thing that you've watched, right, of some video thinking that, oh, that happened a while ago in the 60s. We would never be going through that now, and look at some of the legislation and the things that we're actually fighting for just to be respected for our humanity. So I ask that you consider the things that you can do to make sure that we can exercise the fullness of the freedom that our ancestors fought for. And we have a duty to preserve that. And there are many ways that you can do that. And the first one is, one, get educated. Get registered to vote. Make sure that your friends and family members are registered to vote. Get educated on the policies that are affecting you and your loved ones, and make sure that you make a plan to go vote. And that's something that's a good first step that we can take to make sure that we are honoring the fight and the commitment of our ancestors to ensure that we had a better future, and that we have that obligation to make sure that our children and our children's children get to see and experience freedom. Let's give another round of applause to Jermaine Fowler. I do appreciate everyone coming out today. We have a number of events left on our extensive calendar of events that the Juneteenth Jubilee Commission has put together. I encourage you to go to juneteenthlu.com for more information on that. Thank you so much to our Juneteenth Jubilee Commissioners, the mayor's team for being here, our council members for taking time out of their busy schedule. It's a particularly busy season for you all right now, so thank you for celebrating with us, and we look forward to seeing you the rest of the week and again next year. Thank you.